Okay, so we talk a little bit about the Three Sisters. It's an old method where the Mayans used to have pumpkin, sweet corn and runner beans all growing together. It can be in a small scale area like in your garden, or it could also be on a massive scale in a field somewhere. So the idea is that the maize itself is actually the climbing frame for the runner beans to grow up on. So you don't actually have to put down stakes anymore. That's a fantastic advantage because it takes a lot of actually energy to build a kind of a climbing frame. The other thing as well is that you're also utilizing this in the same space. You can actually grow 3 crops. So you have the maize, you have then the runner beans, and then you have the pumpkin, which actually is planted in between the maize. And pumpkins tend to kind of crawl along the surface of the ground, and that then means you have 3 very important foods, 3 nutritious foods. The Mayans used to grow them because, of course, you have the starch in the maize. You have the pumpkins full of nutrients, and then of course plenty of protein in the beans. So it would have been a staple diet, very important crops for the Mayans. The other advantage of course is as well that if you want to dig your soil, you can actually, what happens above the soil actually happens below as well. So think of it as like a tree. The crown of a tree is the root system down below is the same size as a tree would be, and it's the same for other plants as well. Pumpkins tend to make roots that also spread out a bit. Sweet corn kind of digs down quite deep, bringing up nutrients to the surface. And of course the runner beans are nitrogen fixers, and they kind of spread out but go down a bit as well. They only go down maybe that deep, like the main root system. Of course you have finer hairs going down deeper as well. And this means then that the whole soil is actually being dug for you, and at the end of the season you could even chop up the whole thing, harvest your crops, chop up the whole thing and leave it as a mulch on top as well. So you're digging the soil with the plants, but also you're digging the soil because the worms are going to come up and gobble up all those leaves and digging the soil for you as well. So those are the advantages of the Three Sisters. Okay, so the experiment is going to be me adding another 2 sisters to the equation. I have my 3 sisters going to go in this spot here. I've actually the sweet corn in there already, but it's only about that big, meaning that the runner bean can't really be put right into it just yet. I have to wait until the sweet corn is about maybe that big. Otherwise the runner bean will actually smother the sweet corn, and that's not what we want. The other 2 sisters I'm actually going to add to the equation is going to be, one is sunflower, and just in itself this is a kind of experiment I want to try, because if we can actually just use sunflowers instead of having to build all these kind of climbing structures, first of all it look very nice, but also would attract a lot of kind of bees and butterflies to the garden as well, and we would save ourselves a lot of work as well with building all those climbing structures as well. The second sister, if you like, is going to be Monch 2. Now this is going to be this might not work, but I'm going to try it anyway because I think it's a good idea to experiment. Peas need a climbing structure thinner than a pencil for their little arms, for their arms to actually hold on to something. So obviously the sunflower is going to be way too thick, and the maize as well. So the only thing that they might be able to hold on to is going to be the runner beans, because they've got all these kind of tentacle branches as they climb up. I'm hoping that the peas will actually manage somehow to attach themselves to the runner beans. It's just an idea, it might not work, but I think it might be worth a try as well. So I'm going to plant my sunflowers now because they're tall enough for the beans to start climbing up on. Plus they're going to catch up, they're going to be about that tall by the time the runner beans are going to start climbing. And then next to my runner beans I'm going to plant my peas. And in about 2 weeks time then I'm of course going to plant as well runner beans and peas next to the sweet corn as well. Okay, my sunflower is planted, it's up to the first set of leaves. Pot is down about that deep. We have about maybe an arm's length or 1.5 arm's length away from the maize, and we're going to do about a 3-to-1 ratio between the peas and the runner beans. And of course I'm going to plant 3 or 4 times as much seeds as I would plants, because of course the slugs are going to munch a lot of them as well. And plus I can actually regulate it later. I can kind of just cut away if there's too much runner beans or too many peas, and it's always better to have more than to have too little. Now, plant them. Always selecting the biggest seeds. Stick some 1-2s in there. Whoops, in that. And don't worry, you can actually, peas and beans can be planted really, really close together. 5 centimeters together is no problem whatsoever. I'll just stick a few in there as well. Cover it up nicely. Now I just got 2 examples of I've got about 7 or 8 of these plants. One is a courgette and one is a maxima, a pumpkin. The pumpkin will actually be planted in the center of the bed because it does want to kind of run through the whole entire bed, whereas the courgettes, they stay in one place, making kind of one big plant itself. So I'm just going to plant them along the edges. Quite young plants. I'm also going to put a kind of a collar around them now in a minute to stop the slugs from going at them. And that's pretty much the idea of the experiment. I hope you enjoyed the video. Tell me what you think. Will it work? Won't it? I don't know, but I think experiments are a good thing.